restrictions.
A church, mosque, or other religious organizations in violation could be closed down. The leaders in church will equally be held liable.
Details as governments place of worship guidelines, including a ban on crowd dancing, waving of handkerchiefs, and laying of hands in churches. We also hear the scientific justification offered by government to back the strict directives imposed on churches and mosques.
In business, Finance Minister Ken Oforiatta revises expected revenue loss from COVID-19 pandemic, pegging it at 16 billion cedis, more than that at 615.
And post-mortem results show the African-American man whose death has sparked civil unrest in the U.S. died of asphyxiation or the lack of oxygen. Details plus protest in Ghana in demand of justice for George Floyd.
We're saying that system that calls for African Americans to be kept down must be shut down.
We have details of these and other stories in the package. Thank you for joining us. I am Komla Adum. Let's do the details now. The government says it will shut down churches and mosques which failed to comply with new COVID-19 directives issued last night. President Akufo-Addo, in his 10th address on Sunday, eased restrictions to allow churches, mosques and universities to reopen this week. Religious Affairs Minister Kofi Jameshi addressed the news conference last night.
A church or mosque or other religious bodies that violates the laid down protocols will be dealt with appropriately. A church, mosque or other religious organizations in violation could be closed down. The leaders in church will equally be held liable. The district assemblies and monitoring teams are on hand to ensure compliance with the directives.
The Religious Affairs Minister also said churches must urge their congregants not to dance, wave handkerchiefs and lay hands during deliverance services in church.
No crowd dancing and waving of handkerchiefs during church services. Sanitize microphones immediately after each use. All who speak and sing in churches, including pastors, Sunday school teachers, singers and announcers, must wear face masks during service. Discourage singing in groups. Pre-recorded songs or solos should be used. Pre-packaged communion bread and wine should be picked up by members at the point of entry. Pre-packaged communion bread and wine should be picked up by members at the point of entry. Place offering bowls at the entrance and exit points for members to give offerings and tithes when entering or on their way out of church premises. Encourage cash transfers via mobile money or mobile banking as forms of giving offerings. In observance of social distancing protocols, laying on of hands should not be allowed. In observance of social distancing protocols, laying on of hands should not be allowed.
He also announced mechanisms churches and mosques must adhere to in order to reduce the spread, including the forming of a COVID-19 task force.
Provide adequate ventilation, that is, open windows to allow for the maximum circulation of fresh air. If possible, avoid confined air-conditioned rooms. Display approved health promotion materials on COVID-19 advantage points to remind people to keep to social distancing protocols, wearing of masks, regular hand washing, coughing, and sneezing etiquette. Ensure a no handshake, no hugging, and no spit policy at all times. Follow established evacuation procedures to enable evacuation of a participant if a participant becomes sick during the event has to be evacuated. Form COVID task force comprising of members who are preferably health workers. They must be trained in health promoting prevention measures, infection prevention and control, and evacuation procedures by Ghana Health Service.
Mr. Jameshi also stated that Muslims should perform ablution at home before coming to the mosques.
Ablution should be performed in the house by adherents before entering the mosque. Use easily removable footwear such as slippers. Allow people to come out of the mosque to collect slippers one after the other instead of crowding at the entrance. Put a bowl at the entrance of the mosque, an offering of Fisabidale. Sanitize microphones immediately after use.
You heard the Religious Affairs Minister Jamesi speaking at the news conference last night. Meanwhile, Presidential Advisor on Health, Dr. Anthony Nsiah-Sarah, is justifying guidelines directing churches and mosques to hold a service at the duration of an hour with an attendance of 100 persons. Explaining the science backing the decision, he said the virus has a potential of spreading among large numbers and period exceeding 1 hour.
The risk is very high if you put a lot of people in an enclosed environment for a longer time. The virus will be around the days, especially if you have air-conditioned, cold, dry environment. That's why we also said that as much as possible, the room that you want to do your service, put off the air conditions and open the window for free flow air. Timing is also very important. If you sit in an enclosed environment with 100 or a number of people within the environment more than 1 hour, the chances of acquiring somebody is positive and then infecting people in the room is very high.
You hear the Presidential Advisor on Health, Dr. Anthony Nsiah-Sarah. Still on COVID, there are calls this morning for broader engagement and planning for the safe reopening of the universities across the country. Virologist with the Kumasi KNUST, Dr. Michael Owusu, says testing in the various universities will pose some challenges, with the president allowing schools to reopen from the middle of June.
Is that when there are surges in these places and people have a coughing and sneezing, you need rapid testing to be done for these individuals. But because of the limited testing capacity, whether we'll be able to do that immediately is what we must look at. My worry is that if you expand this to the other universities which don't have easy access to testing sites around, getting this done immediately, I think that it will be a very big challenge.
You heard the virologist at the KNUST, Dr. Michael Owusu. While management of the University of Ghana has been meeting on what to do, Joy News understands concerns were expressed in the meeting about the university's readiness to reopen. Student journalist with Radio Universe on the University of Ghana campus, Manuel Kranting, filed this report.
The university management has been keen on its revised academic calendar. Essentially, there was a communication on 18th of April, which categorically puts this week, June 1 to June 5, as, the revision week. And so, essentially, you're going to have some time next week, even ahead of the official reopening of the school, according to the president. Students are already starting their exams, but there have been some proposals that have already been submitted to the Vice Chancellor, who is studying them, and we're expecting that a finality, if you like, a direct communication will be made to the state.
Yeah, the student journalist on the University of Ghana campus, Manuel Kranting. Our private post-mortem results have revealed that the African-American man whose death has sparked civil unrest in the United States died of asphyxia or simply lack of oxygen. Medical examiners hired by the Floyd family said he died due to compression on his neck and the back by Minneapolis police officers. The findings differ from an official preliminary examination carried out by the country's medical examiner. Across the U.S., protests continued for a seventh night, despite the imposition of curfew in many cities. Well, right here in Ghana, President Akufo-Addo in a tweet said it cannot be right that one of the standards of democracy, the U.S., continues to grapple with systemic racism. His tweet comes as some African Americans in Ghana staged protests to demand justice for Floyd and an end to racism in the U.S. Maxwell Agbagba has more.
Violent protests across the United States as citizens demand justice for African-American man George Floyd, who died hours after being tortured by police.
If we must die, let us die as men and women, face our enemy square in the eye.
Here in Ghana, on the compound of the Diaspora Africa Forum, Executive Secretary of the Pan Affairs Foundation prays for the souls of the many African Americans who have died through police brutality.
And America must look at its very DNA and have a blood transfusion to change its nature. We first seek justice and we also seek reform.
Chief Executive Officer of the Ghana Tourism Authority, Akwesi Agyeman, played a tremendous role in bringing thousands of African Americans to the country during the year of return. He's part of some Ghanaians here solidarizing with the group as the demand for justice grows.
We're here to show solidarity to our brothers and sisters who are here. Enough is enough. This is one more death too many, and it must stop.
Maxwell Abbaba's report there. That's it for the bulletin this morning. But before we go, our Arrival Live tips in this rainy season. Set off early if you're embarking on a journey. Also, park in a safe place if the weather gets bad. Look out for slippery roads.